We're going to cross our fingers that that is our last technological issue of the evening. So welcome, everyone, to the 2025 State of the Mill Creek Address. We thank you all for braving the weather and joining us tonight. We are going to talk about our data from the 2024 Water Quality Monitoring Program from Mill Creek Alliance, as well as hear from some of our local partners on water quality in the region. So for a brief overview of what to expect from the evening, you're going to hear a little bit from me. My name is Beth Himberg. I am the Water Quality Monitoring Program Director at Mill Creek Alliance, as well as the Community Outreach Director. You're going to hear from Dave Schmidt, our Executive Director, Bennett Kotler, our Project Manager and Director for Restoration Programs, as well as Dr. Michael Miller, Jen Kavanaugh from Hamilton County Conservation District, and Laura Boyd from MSD. So a little bit of housekeeping. If you need anything throughout the evening, please feel free to go out those back doors where you came in. On the other side of the Central Plaza are the restrooms, and you can come back around to come back in. If you could please mute your phones and silence your phones in the room tonight, as well as if you are on Zoom, if you can turn your microphones on mute, we would appreciate that. We are going to leave questions after each presenter. There are slides and time for questions, so please hold your questions until that time and we will get to you. If we do need to have any reason for safety exits, there's two along the wall right back here on your right. We would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for the Water Quality Monitoring Program. We have quite a few folks who fund our program, help us make this happen. So thank you to Butler County Water and Sewer, Butler County Stormwater District, L&L Nippert Foundation, and the Ohio EPA. As well as thank you to our hosts tonight. MSD are wonderful partners in everything that we do, including helping us host this event on an annual basis. So as we get started, I want to introduce everyone to the Mill Creek Watershed if you're not familiar. It runs from Westchester all the way to the Ohio River. Mill Creek main stem is 28.1 miles, and it includes 37 jurisdictions and communities. So we have a lot of people who impact and influence the state of the Mill Creek every year and help us protect its health. So to get to know each other and who's in the room tonight, can we shout out, what do we think of when we think about water quality? Paddling, chemistry, what else? Fish, yeah. Wildlife, yeah, what else? Drinking water, absolutely. We do have problems with E. coli as well, and ideally not with our drinking water. Sure, that is also a problem, yeah. Trees rely on water, and we need water quality. They also help contribute to water quality, yeah. Absolutely, habitat. Sure, and people's misperceptions may affect the Mill Creek and Mill Creek watershed more than most in our region, absolutely. Yeah, we do have more rocky bottoms than sand here, absolutely. So, tree canopy? Yeah, and our tree canopy in the Mill Creek helps us with a lot of things that we'll hear about later on this evening. So for everyone in the room and on Zoom, feel free to raise your hands as well. Who here has been to the State of the Mill Creek before? Amazing. Thank you for coming back. Who has not? Amazing. Thank you for joining us. So again, let's shout out. What do you hope to learn or gain this evening? Why is everyone here? Updates? Yeah. Want to learn more about E. coli? Get some updates. Yeah. Hoping for more hope. Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. This presentation is full of collaboration, but everything we do with Mill Creek Alliance is as well, for sure. Positive perceptions, yeah. Sure. Yeah, so recreation opportunities, maybe with infrastructure that is investing in that too, right? Yeah, great. Wonderful. Thank you. Could everyone hear that? So folks in the Zoom chat have said current status. Great. So show of hands again. Who here lives in the Mill Creek watershed? Wonderful. Who works in the watershed? Who has ever paddled on the Mill Creek? Has anybody stepped foot in the Mill Creek? Have we walked alongside the Mill Creek somewhere? What about driven over it? I bet everybody did tonight on the way here. Exactly. So the Mill Creek, above all of the waterways in our region, connects us all, and we're all connected as stewards of this space. So thank you again for being here. We can go to the next slide. And I would also like to thank our communities and partners who help us do the work that we do. So we at Mill Creek Alliance work with many communities to implement positive things in our watershed. So Mill Creek Collaborative is working to implement the Triangle Trail in the northern portion of the watershed. Mill Creek Greenway Trail Working Group is working to implement the Greenway Trail in the lower watershed. We have lots of folks in Westchester Township and Butler County Metro Parks working on wetland implementation alongside of us. And then we have a lot of communities who directly do and own stewardship on their own throughout the watershed as well. And we can't do any of this work without all of our many great local partner organizations and local legislators and policymakers and elected officials who help advocate for the work that we do. So thank you all. And now I would like to introduce our Executive Director, Dave Schmidt.
I'm going to try one more try if it's still working. So, hi everybody. I'm Dave Schmidt. I am so glad to be here tonight, and so glad that all of you feel strongly enough about Mill Creek to have braved the weather tonight to join us here, and those of you who are joining us online as well. We're really honored that you feel strongly enough about our work and about the stream to join us here tonight. We have so much to celebrate. This year, 2025, is the 30th anniversary of the Mill Creek Alliance. And you know, there are people in this room who have been working on this issue a lot longer than I have. Some folks in this room were among the very first who were brave enough, and yes, probably a little crazy enough, to think about the creek when it was in this condition. Go ahead and hit it. You know, and that was the creek 30 years ago, and longer even. And you know, it's still a perception in the community, you know, in certain places that, you know, the Mill Creek is not a place you want to be. And, you know, 30 years ago, to look at the stream when it looked like this and to think, you know, I can do something about that. That was brave and crazy and very inspirational. To think that it looked like this and you were thinking that it was someday it was going to look like this. And this is Mill Creek, and this is not Mill Creek in, you know, the very northern part of the watershed. This is Mill Creek in the heart of the urban core of Cincinnati. This is Mill Creek in South Cumminsville, taken from the Yellow Bridge. The stream has made such an amazing comeback, and that's why we have so much to celebrate here tonight. and in this coming year. And we are going to celebrate it. If you would go to the next slide, please. Yes, I want you all to scribble down this date on your calendars or on your phones right now. We're going to have a great big celebration for our 30th anniversary, September 18th, 2025. We're going to have it out at the new Mad Tree Parks and Rec in Blue Ash, which I think is opening for the first time tomorrow, but it's an incredible facility. You guys are going to love it. You'll be getting a lot more information from us in the coming year, weeks and months about this event, and I hope you'll all be able to join us. Now, moving on to actually talk about the Mill Creek Alliance and the Mill Creek. I'm not going to steal thunder from our other wonderful folks who are going to speak tonight. I'm going to talk about some of our programs that are not water quality, and Bennett Kotler, our project director, is going to talk about restoration. So I'm talking about the other two pillars of the Mill Creek Alliance and our programs, environmental education and restoration. But before I even start that, I want to recognize our incredible staff who are here with us tonight. All but one of us. I think Johnny Dwyer couldn't make it tonight for family reasons, but I want all of the Mill Creek staff, AmeriCorps members, interns to stand up. All you guys, stand up. Yeah, Pip is way in the back. I mean, we have an absolutely incredible staff, and I get to stand up in front of a bunch of people around town and take credit for all of their work, which makes my job really easy. They attack this every day with incredible passion and creativity and energy, and they make running the place and coming to work every day so easy and so joyful. So thank you to them. I also want to say thank you to a number of our board members who are in the audience tonight. You guys want to stand up? Those of you who are here who are on the board, go ahead and stand up. And I know that some of you are online and you can't stand up, but thank you all very, very much. We literally could not do what we do without the help of our board members. They're very active and very, very supportive. Okay, I want to talk really quickly. I'm going to stay on time or Beth is going to start giving me the hook. Let's talk about environmental education. This is absolutely a core program for Mill Creek Alliance. We've been doing it for 20 plus years, and to date have worked with over 42,000 students. And in recent years, we've been working with nearly 2,000 students a year. So the program has just taken off, and there's more and more demand for everything that we do. And education is really, really important because, there's the old saying that we're only going to protect what we love. We only love what we understand, and we only understand what we're taught. And so it is vital that we start, talking to kids about, not just about Mill Creek, but about streams and watersheds and rivers at a young age, so that they understand how vital it is to the entire ecosystem. The heart of everything in the world is water. Without the water, none of our forests, none of our prairies, none of our water supplies for our cities, none of it works. So the education program is absolutely vital. And we get kids outdoors. We don't specialize in classroom work. We do that too. But the important part is getting kids outdoors, getting them to the creek. And it serves so many purposes. And of course, we're talking about water chemistry and the water quality, and we talk about macroinvertebrates. But for a lot of kids in the urban core of Cincinnati, they don't even know Mill Creek is there. And if they do know Mill Creek is there, it's probably a place they've been told their whole lives to stay away from because, it's gross. Why would you want to be there? So not only does it serve an educational purpose, but young people who we can get to the creek, they become ambassadors for us. They go back to their homes and they go back to their communities and schools. And we were at Mill Creek today and it was cool. We saw an osprey. We saw, fish swimming by. We saw a great blue heron. And people helps us get the word out about how the stream has really made this amazing recovery. Another offshoot of our education program is that now we do a lot of work with summer programs when kids aren't in school. We can get to them in the summer. One of those great programs is here, the Makatiwa Anglers Program, where we are, we recruit young people who are interested in water quality and fishing, but have never had a chance to learn to fish. We supply all the gear, we supply all the equipment, and Johnny, folks in our education program, slow it down, get them out in the summer once a week on a day-long excursion where we teach them to fish. We take them fishing different places in the watershed, and the program ends in the summers with a camp out. Most of the time, it's the first time these young people have had a chance to do any kind of camping. So it serves so many different purposes, our environmental education program. I'd also like to talk briefly, and I'm already getting about recreation. Recreation is absolutely vital to what we do. There are many people in the room here who are part of the Mill Creek Yacht Club, who have paddled with us on the stream, and many people who help us guide our paddling trips for the public. And that is such a unique experience. We hear this all the time, that getting somebody on the stream and paddling with us and seeing the stream from that level is such an eye-opening, awe-inspiring experience. It gets you on an absolute guttural level. You see how nice the stream is. You see the fish. You see the birds. You see all the critters in the creek. And you see that the creek is beautiful. This is not, somewhere up in the northern part of the watershed. This is in Carthage. I mean, there are absolutely stunning parts of the stream throughout the entire region. It makes this beautiful green ribbon that flows right through the heart of our city and our county. And when we get people out there, it is eye-opening, and it makes them want to do something and to work with us. The Yacht Club also is involved in a number of other activities. There's our man, Commodore Bruce Kaler, in the canoe with a load. We do lots and lots of cleanups. We always are looking for more volunteers to help us with those. But we're also involved, go ahead. We'll flip through the many cleanups. And they get creative at times. We rig canoes and we rig ladders to help us get up the banks. And we have a great cadre of volunteers, but we're always looking for more. Go ahead. But there are many, many other recreational activities that we are now engaged in. And again, we want to get people to the creek. The creek itself we think is over the hump. We still have issues with water quality. You'll hear about some of them tonight. But the creek is over the hump, and the ecology of the creek is recovering so rapidly. And now we want to be able to take advantage of that. So many long missing species are coming back to the watershed now. The biggest missing species that still isn't in the creek often enough is people. So the more things that we can do to get people to the creek and to the watershed, the better off we are. So we're doing lots and lots of birding. Bald eagles and ospreys have come back so strongly. We're seeing them weekly, sometimes daily now. Picture like the one on the right there of a wetlands restoration project we just completed up in Westchester. I mean, it's amazing. It's like the birds are just waiting for us to be done. I mean, this picture was taken about 2 weeks after we finished a restoration project, and it was herons and egrets just showed up like it was a magnet. It's just been amazing, and over 120 species have now been seen in that site just in the last 4 months. So it's absolutely stunning how quickly it comes back. The same is true of fishing, and you'll hear some more information about that later. But there's great fishing on the Mill Creek now. If you guys are into it, I hope you'll take advantage of it. We can give you some hints about where to go. There are several species of bass. That's a nice largemouth bass the gentleman is holding on the right. There are people that go fly fishing on Mill Creek now. Again, absolutely amazing how rapidly the species have come back now that the water quality is improved and Bennett's taking care of all the low-head dams. Go ahead. And I do want to say, last but not least, we're also gotten heavily engaged in trail building and trail development. We are working in all parts of the watershed to develop these trails. This is the Mill Creek Greenway Trail, which is part of the Crown project that we're working on with our good friends at Tri-State Trails and the port and a number of other great partners. We want to complete the Mill Creek Greenway Trail and get it all the way down to the Ohio River. We're having some very promising discussions with CSX, who owns that corridor. Not a done deal yet by any means, but it's looking good. We're also working on another large trail system in the northern part of the county that we call the Triangle Trail. Again, this is with many great partners, Tri-State Trails, Great Parks of Hamilton County. Many of our suburban communities are involved in contributing to the feasibility study as we do the engineering and figure out the routes. And this is going to be a 40-plus mile trail loop that's going to connect 3 great parks and 14 suburban communities with the Mill Creek. So all of these things together, bringing people back to the creek, we hope will continue to gather support for the stream and for our work. And now I'll get off because I'm getting the high side. Thank you so much. I think our next speaker is going to be our project director, Bennett Kotler, who oversees all of our stream work, all of our restoration projects. Take it away.
Thank you, Dave. Thank all of you for coming. This is a really large crowd, and clearly, you being here is how the work gets done, is through support. I begin my presentation with a quick look at the state of the Mill Creek for its restoration projects with the same site that Dave showed. And clearly we've fallen in love with this site. It's our Westchester Wetlands site. In this photo of it, you see about a dozen snowy egrets. They were about 4 times that number on a fall afternoon that were there. And we're finding that birds are a metric of ecological lift and success. Oops, how about we go back one more. This is a summary, the high-level summary of the portfolio of projects that the Restoration Division has for the Mill Creek Alliance. We currently have 9 projects that we're working through. They're valued at $3.5 million. And in 2024, we completed this one wetland, and I'll tell you more about that. And we also completed one Lowhead Dam, and so I'll present those as case studies. I would be remiss if I did not point out that 8 of 9 of these projects have been caught up with the federal funding freeze. So, yes, environmental projects that help communities, justice, social organizations that help communities and kids in need are all being swept up in this. And with 8 of 9 projects, that would reduce our portfolio perhaps to 1 out of 9. And that is the definition of decimation. So for so many of you that support us with your time, with your money, supporting us with your voice and helping us to tell the news story about the Mill Creek and the Mill Creek Alliance might hopefully get us out of this problem that we're finding ourselves in. And for what it's worth, you may be aware that the 2-page memo responsible for this shutdown of trillions of dollars in federal aid has been rescinded, and there are court actions to stop the underlying MOUs. So this week or two, we're okay. But needless to say, these projects take a considerable amount of work. It takes years to develop. When we are under contract with the Ohio EPA, the way that works is that the states, including Ohio, receive grants from the federal government under the Clean Water Act, Section 319. and then those are granted as subawards to organizations such as ours. So that's how the federal government supports good work in Ohio, including ours. So I want to show you some of this good work, which you can then pass on and communicate as you help us tell the story. I'd like to give you a quick tour of restoration projects in the Mill Creek, starting in the northern part. And you can see at the very bottom of this page is 275. Just above that is Crescentville Road, and that's the delineation between Hamilton County and Butler County. And you can see that over the years we've had a tremendous amount of work, but I want to point out to you in the upper left-hand corner is a project in orange, and that's our newest project, that's our active project, which is Westfall Preserve Wetland. So we're going to be working on restoring another historical wetland along the Mill Creek. The really exciting part about this, it's immediately next to the project that Dave and I showed you pictures of, Westchester Wetlands. So we've got two wetlands, one right next to the other, and you already saw that there are dozens of birds. Dave said 120 species. So we're going to increase that habitat, and all of that is immediately adjacent to just over the creek and the railroad tracks from Ellis Lake Wetland. So all of these projects are beginning to complement each other and leverage other ecological improvement. Moving down gradient to the middle of the Mill Creek, what we see at the very top is Sharon Creek Restoration Project. This project is actually funded by 5 grants, one by Great Parks of Hamilton County to acquire the land from Norfolk Southern Railroad. And then Mill Creek Alliance acquired an additional 4 grants to then do the design and construction. It is out to bid. Okay, we'll have our tech work on that. But I can finish a few words about that area, which extends from Sharonville down to Reading Road, down to City of Reading, and yeah. So there's that Sharon Creek Restoration Project, one of our largest projects, a total of $1.8 million. The work that we're doing involves 2 federal grants. Thank you. 2 federal grants which serve as a match, right? We're being very resourceful and very clever about generating as much money as we can for as much restoration as we can do in the Mill Creek and in Southwest Ohio. So that's one of big project that's going on. And yeah, my Valentine's Day present to myself will be that the bids are due that Friday. So we'll see what kind of that kind of present I get. The other 2 projects pictured in orange are Lowhead Dam River Mile 13.4 and Lowhead Dam River Mile 11.8, the largest 2 remaining Lowhead dams in the entire 28-mile Mill Creek. And we've got federal funding to complete those. And in exchanges with Ohio EPA, there's still conservation easements and surveys to be worked out. The construction of that will take place next summer, not 2025, 2026. So a little bit longer to open up 28 miles of Mill Creek to the Ohio River. Yeah, really chomping at the bit to really do that, but we've got to take our time make sure our funders are happy. The last portion, moving further down gradient into the lower Mill Creek watershed, the most exciting thing is that we are putting together a plan of projects. In order to get $319, there has to be a 9-element plan completed for that sub-watershed. We talk about the Mill Creek watershed, but it's comprised of 5 sub-watersheds. 4 of the sub-watersheds have a plan and have received 319 funding. You need both. You need both a plan, you need projects included in that plan. One of the sub-watersheds hasn't. Well, we're going to rectify it this year and write the 9-element plan for the West Fork. We have a public meeting coming up March 15th for communities on the west side of the Mill Creek, and at a later date, once we catch our breath, in an additional month or 2, we'll have another public meeting, one of the 9 elements of writing this plan for the east side. And this is one of the areas, among the projects include fixing the hazardous scour hole that has been carved out at the confluence of West Fork and the Mill Creek, and you can see that right in the center of the slide. That V, that fork, is between those 2 bodies of water. And then activating the Yellow Bridge that Chris Carr and Dave have been working really hard to move a fence back and begin getting community access to the Mill Creek. So I'd like to present about 2 of the projects that we did. This is the Lowhead Dam mitigation at River Mile 12.0, which the Mill Creek Yacht Club has called Bone Crusher Falls. How many of you have paddled over Bone Crusher Falls? Okay, a few of you, and I'm so sorry, but I mitigated it this summer, and so you've lost your chance. It is no longer this really scary portage that that needs to be done. But yes, this is a photo. Linda Keller and I did this first Mill Creek Yacht Club Urban Stream Adventure within months of us being here. And so, yeah, it was a really great initiation to the Mill Creek. So that was taken in 2018. And it wasn't on my radar, but in the coming years, we developed the project and all the necessary parts, and that included coming up with a concept. At the top, you can see Joel Thrash and Rick Warwick from Stantec, who was the group that designed and ultimately built this project. Down below, during the project this past summer, you can see the heavy machinery in the creek building the riffle, the ramp of rocks up and over Bone Crusher Falls. So if we go to the next slide, we can see it's no more. And now this is how we get through this obstruction. And notice too that you can see it's mitigated. We use that word. The concrete structure, the sewer line that it protects, they're still in place. We have a great relationship with MSD in this regard, where, yeah, we've added tons of rock around the sewer line, which helps protect it. So isn't that interesting that in some regards, some of the design elements can be both? And what I've been doing on these Lowhead Dam projects is having members of the yacht club, in this case it's Tom Boeing, test it out and see how does it work in terms of a recreational metric, because sometimes the ecology, fixing one of these ecologically does not mean it's right recreationally. So this is a way to address that design feature. We're back at Westchester Wetlands. Nearly $500,000. This was funded by H2 Ohio. And again, this is just months after it's completed, and the birds showing up, likely they're flying just over the tracks from Ellis Lake Wetland. They've just been extraordinary. When we first found out about this project and watched the dates in the lower right-hand corner, it was 2020. It was a agricultural field. I don't get around to sites as, on a regular basis, so I made the proposal to Ohio Division of Natural Resources. I got the award for the money for the project, and I came out with a group of bidders to take a look at the project, and this is what it looked like. The development got ahead of me, and some of the bidders pulled out. Davy Resources Group hung in there and reconfigured their proposal. Actually, the excavation helped us meet our budget. Excavation's a really big part of budgets. I do want you to take a look and notice too, the water looks somewhat homogeneous. The vegetation in this photo is surely homogeneous, and that homogeneity, that lack of diversity is not a component of a high quality project. Take a look in the lower right hand corner. Our activities through Davy include regrading and adding scalloping to the shoreline. There are areas that are shallow and deep. There's emergent plants, submerged plants, and all of that environmental and habitat diversity, that's what breeds and cultivates biodiversity. So yeah, for the work we do, with nature-based solutions, diversity is really our strength. That environmental diversity leads to plant diversity, and that leads to invertebrate diversity, and that leads to a diversity of birds, and you see killdeer there. And then, yes, as Dave mentioned, then we get new birds, a new kind of bird flocking to it. And if you can see, we're getting birders there who have crowdsourced a site that Dave referenced on Cornell Ornithology's eBird website. And yeah, and you might see in her t-shirt, it proclaims her as a bird nerd. So yes, we're gonna try to put together opportunities for additional birding. So in addition to your support, sharing your voices about funding for all of these projects, we look forward to working with you at work parties and individuals who might adopt a spot. We've got a number of areas for that. Additional opportunities include all the live staking that's going to be taking place from Valentine's Day to our first Saturdays are what we're looking for work parties. And there are opportunities with the Mill Creek Yacht Club leading the 15th and 16th at Heritage Park and Evendale Commons South. Our partners at Butler County Soil and Water District are going to lead a harvesting of live stakes on Thursday the 27th, and then I'll be installing them on that first Saturday at Twin Creek. The very last thing is to take note of that public meeting, and we're looking again for residents who can contribute to that plan, as well as consultants or members of scientific community that might help us along. Well, thanks very much. If I get a little bit more time, we're not going to stretch it. Any quick questions that I might be able to answer? Mm-hmm. That was the date that the photo was taken. And yeah, so at any time, we're documenting the projects, and you can see the changes over the years. Well, in the interest of moving along, we'll move along, if that's all right.
Way to go, Bennett. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Bennett. I'm going to speak a bit about our water monitoring program. And I don't know why our slides are getting a little off kilter because they look fine on the screens. So if you have questions about what they are saying, please let me know. But the Mill Creek Alliance Water Quality Monitoring Program was established in 2013 and continues on to this day. And we do have some volunteers who have been with us the entire time. We have some volunteers in the room who have been with us for 10 years or more, which is incredible. We sample at 57 sites throughout the watershed, which you can see here. We have over 100 volunteers doing field sampling and helping us with laboratory analysis. We sample the second Saturday of the month from March to November. And we're in an excellent partnership with Butler County Water and Sewer, who allows us to use space at their laboratory in Sharonville. So we also are able to collaborate with Rivers Unlimited and the Little Miami River water quality monitoring programs, because all three of our programs collect samples at the same time on the same day of every month. We're able to share our data across all three of these watersheds and have a really great look at water quality in the region as a whole. So we're here to talk about water quality. We're here to talk about data from water quality monitoring. Why do we monitor? Why do we do water quality monitoring? There's a few reasons here on the slide. We want to evaluate the effectiveness of our projects, like ones that Bennett is doing. When we install a wetland, do we see an increase in our data in water quality parameters, right? We're able to proactively respond to federal mandates, changes to the Clean Water Act, to any issues that may happen, which we're going to hear about a little later this evening as well. And we're able to aid in watershed planning efforts. We have data backing up the things that we're seeing happening in real time on a monthly basis, which is awesome. We're also able to educate watershed stakeholders, help policymakers make informed decisions, because we have over a decade's worth of data to do so. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Why do we monitor? Any reasons we would want to know about water quality through data? Absolutely. We get, as Dave said, to go to the waterway on a monthly basis. We have over 100 volunteers getting out there. Yeah.
Sense of community.
Yeah, sense of community. You get to wake up early on a Saturday morning, go play in the stream, and then come eat a Holtman's donut when you drop your samples off at the lab. It's a great time. Awesome. So I would like to take a moment to recognize our water quality monitoring volunteers. Who here in the room is a volunteer with our program? Let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. In 2024, we had over 100 field samplers and 25 lab volunteers, and we collected 1,122 streamside samples. We ran 37,368 individual tests, and our volunteers spent 800 hours collecting samples and 300 hours in the lab. Thank you all so much for your time. We couldn't do this without you. I would like to recognize Chikandi, who could not make it this evening for perfect attendance last year. The only one. So I would like to also recognize all of these amazing volunteers who had near perfect attendance, which was missing 2 or less events for the season. And 9 months is a lot of time to give, so we greatly appreciate all of your time. I would also like to recognize, could you stand up, please? Emilio Martinez was our lab leader for 2024. I had the pleasure of joining this team in July of 2024, And so I came in to the middle of a well-functioning season. Volunteers knew what they were doing. Lab volunteers knew what they were doing, and it could not have been done without Amelia keeping everything together with the transition of her boss. We collected every sample, we didn't miss a beat, and everything went smoothly, so thank you. So we're gonna talk a little bit about water chemistry and our data, and I wanna preface that I'm an ecologist, I am not a chemist, but I'm surrounded by a lot of very smart people in the room who help us do what we do. So what we test for with our water quality monitoring program are these parameters listed here. Everyone individually gives us an indication of water quality and stream health, but collectively, they give us a very good picture of stream health across those 57 sampling sites. And when we look at each of these parameters, they're all measured in different units, but each of them has a threshold within what we call our water quality ranking system. So we rank with a color-coded system to make it easy for all of us, but excellent and good are what we look for within our total parameters. We're gonna see fair start to mean impaired. Poor is more impaired, and unacceptable is not doing so hot. We see each of these parameters across the board, collectively throughout the waterway, or at individual sites, come in different places across this ranking system. But this system helps us have an indication and compare all of these parameters throughout their different units in terms of water quality as a whole. So overall, our total data for 2024, these are site averages on our maps, and you're gonna see this for every parameter as we go through. So this is the annual seasonal average for each site listed. We had 19% of our sites were excellent for the season, 58% were good, and 26 were fair. So we are seeing impairment, but we are also seeing a lot of sites doing very well overall, which is excellent. Our water quality rank overall shows some seasonal variability, which is normal for this waterway. And we have a lot of impairment that we see at River Mile 19, and then further south, and in our tributaries. And there are reasons for that that we're gonna discuss as we move on. So if we look at each parameter in its water quality rank in 2024 compared to 2023, we see an improvement in every parameter for 2024 over the previous year, which is what we're hoping for. We're not going to fix any of our problems in a day or a year, but what we hope to see is consistent, continued improvement. All of our waterways and water quality is dependent on precipitation and discharge and air temperature. So for 2024, we had drought conditions from June through September, but we also saw a significant amount of rain in the region for the whole year. So what we're starting to see happen more often is large rain events and then large dry spells, and then large rain events and then large dry spells. And that's a trend that you're gonna hear more about this evening, but it's going to continue. And that impacts water quality in a lot of different ways. We also saw our hottest year in Cincinnati in 2024 with an average high of 67 degrees. But the Mill Creek is unique compared to our other local waterways of Great Miami and Little Miami in that we have consistent discharge from effluent from the wastewater treatment plants on the stream. So this may sound like a negative, but in reality, consistent effluent means consistent flow even during these dry spells and even during a drought. So it is a positive in a lot of ways as well. So you'll see on your handouts, if everyone grabbed one, our main kind of consistent parameters of concern are total phosphorus, E. coli, and conductivity. So for total phosphorus, again, this is each site's average for the season. Collectively, it was 2 times the EPA water quality standard for the entire waterway. We're seeing most of our sites start in fair, so start as impaired and then move down from there. And we see a lot of seasonal variability happen with that too, but we also see this point at River Mile 19. That is where our Butler County wastewater treatment plant is. And like I said, they are great partners. We have our laboratory there. They invest in the work that we do. But as they process and treat total phosphorus, we're still seeing some evidence that we're missing the mark. We're also seeing a lot of these are squares and a lot of these are tributaries. So we're seeing some issues in our tributaries as well as our main stem. E. coli, as was shouted out earlier, is a concern for a lot of people. It's a concern in the Mill Creek for recreation as well. Overall, site averages, we have sites that were excellent and good, as well as impaired. And when we look at our data for the season, we also see these lines here are contact levels. So there are listed contact levels for swimmable versus non-contact recreation versus no contact. And we do have quite a few sites per month that were swimmable, as well as in no contact recreation. So as we mentioned earlier, we want to dispel some fears. We want to dispel some misconceptions about the Mill Creek. Yes, E. coli is a problem. It's not a problem everywhere, and it's not a problem all the time. And that's what we want to remember. Overall, for water quality, large concerns are nutrients in general, which are total phosphorus and nitrogen, nitrates. Nitrogen and nitrates in the Mill Creek are actually doing okay. Overall, they were good. We saw a monthly drop to fair, few sites consistently in the low range, but a lot of sources of nitrates being a problem in waterways are runoff from fertilized lawns, croplands, and failing on-site septic systems, which we don't have a lot of in the Mill Creek watershed. So there are some benefits to being a very urban waterway, and it's that we don't have a lot of sources contributing to this type of nutrient issue. So we were mostly within that water quality standard range for the season. We saw some spikes as weather came through and moved some water through. And again, we're seeing some variability in tributaries versus main stem sites. So conductivity is also a variable parameter. Conductivity is a really useful measure of water quality because every water body has a relatively constant range of conductivity. So once you know that, it's a good baseline. And when we start to see fluctuations, we're seeing indications that there's discharge or there's some kind of pollutant entering the waterway, which is why we measure for conductivity. So we're seeing high values in tributaries, and we're seeing conductivity flush itself out as discharge and precipitation come through throughout the season. Chlorophyll, everyone loves to talk about chlorophyll. It's a really key indicator of monitoring the health of any natural system because it exists in all of our freshwater environments, but when chlorophyll starts to spike or increase, it's due to other problems. It's connected to a lot of other parameters. So overall, chlorophyll at all of our sites looked really great for the season. Does anyone know why that might be? I know Mike knows. As Bruce mentioned earlier, it's the canopy cover. So Dave used the term a ribbon of green, and the Mill Creek is a very narrow waterway. So that canopy cover tends to cover a lot of the stream, which helps reduce sunlight, reduce chlorophyll growth throughout the season, reduce algal growth throughout the season, right? So we saw highest values in chlorophyll in our tributaries, which have lower flow, in June and September, which were spikes in air temperature. We saw chlorophyll reduce as discharge moved through which also makes sense, right? The more flow and more consistent flow we have, the less of a problem this is going to be, which is great. When we look at turbidity, which is the clarity of the water and suspended particles in the water, right? Overall, also looked good. We have some sites in impairment. And so what that can tell us is soil erosion, urban runoff, eroding stream banks. But also because we are an urban waterway, we have really high proportions of impervious surfaces. So when we have those big rain events, we have water rush into the stream very quickly, which also stirs up sediments and can cause higher turbidity. So we obviously see an increase with rainfall, and we had a drought up until September and then a lot of rain in September. So we see that increase correspond with this data. We're also seeing really high turbidity at a confluence at Twin Creek Preserve. And this is something that we're not exactly sure why, but this is the type of data that helps us do some more investigation, see what's physically going on in the watershed, and try to figure out what's contributing to these issues. So optical brighteners. Optical brighteners are dyes that are added to laundry detergents. And since laundry effluent is predominantly associated with sanitary wastewater, when we're seeing optical brighteners, they're serving as an indicator of illicit discharges or untreated discharges into the waterway, right? So overall, every site was excellent or good, which is great. It's what we want to see. But we are still seeing some optical brightener values near River Mile 19, and we do see them reduce as we have more discharge and precipitation coming through the waterway, which is great. So the last parameter that we test for is pH. Fluctuating pH is an indicator of physiological stress for our aquatic species. So we really want to pay attention to pH and where we may be having issues with it. Luckily, every site looked great on average throughout the season and within our range for aquatic habitat health, which is great. So when we do see temperature and chlorophyll spike, we're going to see increases in pH, but overall it was within a good range and everything looks great. So a couple of things to note on how these parameters interact with each other. I talked about nitrogen and phosphorus being collective nutrients of concern with water quality, right? Interestingly, in the Mill Creek, they interact inversely to one another. So total phosphorus, we see a primary source of that input is from wastewater treatment areas. So if it's coming through with discharge, we're going to see a trend with discharge. And because we have consistent flow in the Mill Creek, it also doesn't have time to settle out or to bind to sediments. So we see that phosphorus cycle continuing throughout the stream, throughout the season. So it's going to trend, phosphorus is going to trend well with rainfall and discharge, but because Butler County Wastewater Treatment Plant does a great job at denitrifying, we don't have a lot of nitrogen. And as that discharge and rainfall comes through, we're reducing that nitrogen level. So another interesting correlation of note is that we're going to see chlorophyll decrease with higher turbidity because turbidity is reducing the light availability in the stream. So while high turbidity may be an issue, that constant flow, again, stirring up some sediments, is reducing the capacity for chlorophyll spikes, reducing the capacity for algal blooms in the Mill Creek watershed, which is a good thing. As pH decreases, total phosphorus can become more soluble, and then its availability is reduced as pH rises. So we're also going to see this really beautiful inverse trend between pH and total phosphorus as well throughout the season. So thank you for hanging in there for all of that chemistry. But for our program as a whole, I just want to share a couple of updates, goals for 2025. We are going to update our field data collection process. We're going to move to a process where we can actually utilize our field data in conjunction with our water chemistry. So we're seeing an issue at Beaver Run. Our water samplers fill out a sheet that says what they're seeing in terms of erosion, in terms of canopy cover on a monthly basis. And we don't have a really great way to integrate those two forms of data right now. So we're gonna work towards being able to utilize that data collectively this year. We're also gonna make our data more easily available and accessible to the public on our website, where ideally you could go click at Beaver Run and see a history of water chemistry and what the current status of its water data is. We're gonna do some qualitative habitat evaluations in the summer with our education director, Johnny Dwyer. And I think I said all these things. So we're really excited to keep moving forward and keep adding capacity to this program. I'm gonna introduce Dr. Mike Miller to talk a little bit more about what all of this water chemistry means for the Mill Creek, for the season, for the region.
Welcome, welcome. This is the official changing of the guard. Since the onset of this program, I've always given the chemistry, and I've turned it over now to the youngsters in the crowd. And so this is really a substantial change in venue. What I wanted to do was throw in a little warning about what's coming with climate change and drought levels. This is our rainfall pattern over the season. And up here, 1991 to 2020 is the monthly rainfall. But you'll notice this hiatus in August, September, and October. This year, the rain stopped in July and didn't take up again until November. And it was drought. And this pattern is coming alive. Come next slide. Here's the rainfall coming in inches. And over here in 2018 was the highest. Up to that time, it looked like the rainfall was increasing. In 2018, it's been going down very consistently every year. And this year was perhaps one of the worst droughts we've had. The Oxbow ink went dry. And the chances are the climate change models of the USGS and of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers suggest that because of the extensive highs that develops over from the Carolinas all the way to Cincinnati, we're going to continue to see drier and drier summers. Next slide. What does that show? Well, here's the 2024 to 2018, and here's the maximum flow. 2018 is over here, 2024 is over here. Downward trend for maximum flow, downward trend for mean flow, downward trend for median flow, downward trend for minimum flows. You know, we're getting drier. And the question is this a short-term variation or is this the real thing? Next slide. What I did was take that discharge from every day and compute the total water that came down the Mill Creek and then divided it by the area of the Mill Creek in meters squared. And here's the runoff per meter square per year, showing that back in 2018, we had almost 9/10 of a meter of water run off, and by this summer we're down to 4/10 of a meter. And we get about a meter of rain, so that's about 40% runs off. In a natural undisturbed watershed, about 25% should run off, or even less. But we can see, so from the rainfall to the discharge, we're seeing this downward trend. Now, what does low water mean for a stream like the Mill Creek? Well, there are several things. One, the velocity goes down, and this thing called the wetted perimeter, the amount of the stream bed which is covered with water. As the flow goes down, less and less area is covered with water, so there's less habitat. And Beth said the salvation of the Mill Creek is the constant water flow from effluent and from industrial water from Southwest Water District that takes it out of the Great Miami and dumps it into the Mill Creek. So we have this benefit. But when the water flow slows down, some fish like darters, you need 5 or 6 darter species to have exceptional warm water IBIs. They don't have a swim bladder, and they sit on the bottom and they come up and feed, and the food has to come to them in a current. They don't go out and forage like a bluegill. And all the organisms in the ICI, the Index of Community Integrity for Macroinvertebrates, the mayflies, the stoneflies, and the caddisflies that are sensitive in indicators are sensitive because they can't irrigate their gills. Their gills stick out, and it takes current going over them to irrigate them. Well, you know, we might be able to survive 1 or 2 years of drought, but this consistent pattern of going lower and lower with less and less wet perimeter, I expect to see, we're going to see some falls in key sensitive species in future, more so than we have to date. So that's my prediction. Do I have any more time? 1 minute? The impacts that Beth was showing at River Mile 19, the Butler County Regional Water Reclamation Facility does a great job in denitrification. So that's the reason we don't they blow it off as N2 gas, where it goes harmlessly into the atmosphere. 70% of the atmosphere is N2 gas. And it's perfect. And they also facilitate the removal of phosphorus by getting the bugs in the system to digest semi-anaerobically or low oxygen the phosphorus. So when it goes into the activated sludge, that phosphorus is available to the bugs, and they suck it up like mad, and then they can settle those bugs out in the clarification step. And so those two systems make this a very efficient system. It's one of the best secondary systems in the region because it has to meet both phosphorus and nitrogen standards, and most of our plants don't. So this is a first. And so, you know, I just want to say to amend that is that we're kind of lucky that we've got a good sewer plant. Now we'd love to see, meaning me, we'd love to see the Wildermuth wetland turned into a nitrogen and phosphorus removal system. I had a class do a project on it last year, and it's feasible for maybe $1.5 million, but this isn't the time to get new money. It's just not going to become available. But if we were to run that effluent at 10 million gallons a day or 5 million gallons a day through the wetland, we'd remove an awful lot of that phosphorus and nitrogen and improve the Mill Creek regionally. I can't think of anything that would be cheaper and do a better job to facilitate the biological improvement of the Mill Creek, other than taking out the dams. That is first. And I'm going to end there and throw it open to questions for both of us, if you got any.
How's the Glendale wastewater treatment plant doing?
Well, the Glendale wastewater treatment plant comes in, you know, out there in Springdale, and it isn't the best, but it goes into a small stream that's very rocky and flows. And this is what we call an ideal tertiary treatment system. So in that transect from the wastewater treatment plant to the Mill Creek, a very large amount of that nutrient and organic matter is mineralized and absorbed. It's perfectly maintained for that. So it is not a major contributor to the problem of the Mill Creek because volume is quite low.
I didn't see any data on temperature. Is that just too variable? Or?
They measure temperature. You need a lot of long-term data or continuous monitoring, and it's just not an easy parameter to deal with. Max and mins would be useful, but you know, no, we need a few sondes. If anybody wants to give us a sonde or two to put in to get temperature, conductivity, pH, and oxygen semi-continuously during the summer, we'd be delighted.
Yeah, John. Absolutely, yeah. So we do find ourselves at Mill Creek Alliance enjoying the fact that we are not a regulatory agency. However, we do have strong partnerships with our local regulatory agencies. So I unfortunately don't see Eric Bartle here tonight, but he is one of our Hamilton County regulators. And actually this past summer, we had a Reading resident knock on our front door of the office and say, hey, there's a CSO right down the street that's flowing. And this was during the drought. So that shouldn't be happening. Dave went out and took some video of it. We called our local regulators and they were able to go follow up and do their job. So while we're not regulators, we do have data, we do have things to support people following up on those issues, yeah.
Can I make one last point? That is, we're talking about droughts, not floods. Asheville, North Carolina proved that hurricanes could go anywhere. The biggest rain event we've ever had in Cincinnati since we've been keeping records is 5.9 inches. I was out in coastal Carolinas this day. We got 17.2 inches in 2 days. Florida, you know, and parts of the world just get flooded. We don't. And now we've had some 400-year events. We had one on Mostella Road in 2001. It flooded Ford and everything above Sharon Road. We had a 400-year sub-event in Norwood in 2016, and our director then of the Mill Creek Alliance was stuck on a hill in the middle of Norwood because she couldn't get off of it. And the point is, we're past due for a big event. And our sewer system is built for a 2-year event, maybe a 2.5-inch rainfall. We're going to see some big floods, and those floods could come, as we know from the studies have done recently on landslides, that landslides and other things, particularly affecting poor communities, are likely to be likely to occur. So although I'm preaching drought, beware, we're well overdue for a big event.
Thank you. Linda, did we have any questions from Zoom? Here, we have a question from the Zoom chat.
Question from the Zoom. What types of information are you hoping will be available to the public in the future? Will all observational parameters be released as they are recorded?
Thank you. Yes, so right now we post our data on our website on an annual basis once we have put it into a collective spreadsheet, and then it's just raw data. What we're looking to do moving forward, and Kylie, who helped pose this question, is going to help us input our data into a GIS-based system that can be interactive, and we can post it on a monthly basis. So we can see publicly our data closer to real time.
And the Great Miami River, we're monitoring E. coli monthly, and we're getting it out within 3 days of the sample date and putting it on our website, and we're going to be posting it at some of the public access points. But we've got the Ohio River, the Whitewater River, the Great Miami River, the East Fork of the Whitewater River. We do not have the Mill Creek because they don't turn their data over to us that fast, but we printed out here, and this year it was pretty good data for all streams. The cleanest stream in our area for E. coli for all of you is the Ohio River. The next cleanest normally is the Whitewater River. The worst is usually the Mill Creek. Throw it open to a committee. In the Mid River, somewhere between River Mile 19 and the mouth, it would not be, you know, by the time you get to River Mile 7.3, we're in the Trapezoidal Channel, and it's more or less open, and we're never going to change that in our history, likely. And so, you know, ideally it would be up above Town Avenue would be a good place for it, because we've restored so much of the banks and continuing to work on that area. So if I were putting it in, I'd put it in above Town Avenue Bridge.
All right, last question. Yes, Steve. Absolutely, yes. So we utilize iNaturalist through our education program. Our education director, as Dave mentioned, takes a lot of youth into the stream to do science experiments, collect macroinvertebrates, things like that. We utilize both Seek and iNaturalist with children, but we do have a Mill Creek Alliance iNaturalist account. So anyone, while you are out in the waterway, you're able to collect data and add it so that it's visible to us as well. Yes, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. We are going to bring up our next presenter from Hamilton County Conservation District to speak more about aquatic habitat health and in-stream studies. So welcome, Jen Kavanaugh.
Hello, my name is Jen Kavanaugh. I'm an AmeriCorps member serving at the Hamilton County Conservation District. My position is public involvement, and I've been working under Sarah Meadows, who I want to give a big shout out and thank you to. Everything I'm about to talk about in the next 15 minutes, I learned from her and her mentorship. I originally had no interest in fish. I even tried to get out of my fish ID class in college, and I did. And now here I am. A lot has changed, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about fish community assessment and water quality. So in 2022, Hamilton County Conservation District received an Ohio Environmental Education Fund to purchase electrofishing equipment and implement a new level for biological data collection. This program is multi-purposed, and it will serve as an opportunity for residents to learn and participate in stream monitoring in their neighborhoods, and also to provide a resource for local partners to monitor the efficacy of their environmental improvements, projects, or to collect baseline data for grants and project proposals. So what is electrofishing? Electrofishing is a modern form of biological monitoring. It involves the use of specialized equipment to create electrical current in a body of water to temporarily stun fish so that they're easier to capture. Once captured, they will be identified, weighed, counted, and then released back to the water. The process typically involves a generator or battery-powered electrofishing unit. So the battery-powered electrofishing unit is on the left, and the big gold generator one is the one on your right. And these will send a controlled electrical pulse into the water. It is mostly non-lethal, and and we can adjust the amps, voltage, frequency, and pulse to better suit the habitat that we are sampling in. And electrofishing is widely viewed as one of the most effective ways to capture the full picture of fish populations in a body of water. So these are the 14 sites that we have sampled between 2023 and 2024. The sites in blue are the ones in collaboration with Mill Creek Alliance, and the sites in green are in association with Rivers Unlimited. The sites that are in red and are other might be third parties that we were asked to sample for, like I said, to collect baseline data for before or after restoration, or for data to support a grant. So a typical day for electrofishing starts early. Field season is late summer to early fall, so we try to beat the heat. We will use the generator-powered electrofishing unit, also known as the long line, so that's that big bulky one. And after gearing up with rubber-lined waders, rubber gloves, and polarized sunglasses, we begin sampling downstream to upstream. Sampling sites are categorized into two categories. We have wadable and headwater. So wadable sites have a drainage area of over 10 square miles, and we will sample those for 200 meters. And headwater sites are under 10 square miles for a drainage area, and we will sample those for 150 meters. We don't loop back while sampling, so site selection is crucial. We have to decide where we want to sample, looking at factors like streamside habitat, overhanging vegetation, and woody debris. The goal is not to catch every fish, but rather to sample the best fish habitats to get an accurate representation of the stream's fish of the stream's fish community. Once active sampling is complete, it's time to sort the fish. So we sort the fish using buckets by species. We make sure that the water is cool and oxygenated to minimize stress. Unfortunately, this is the stage where most fish mortality happens. Handling and sorting the fish can be really stressful, especially when dealing with large samples. After sorting, we move to data collection. At weightable sites, we will count and weigh the fish before releasing them back into the stream. At headwater sites, we will just count the fish. And once data is all collected and recorded, the fish will be safely returned to the water, and we will complete the QHEI, or the Qualitative Habitat Evaluation Index, and call it a day. So this is our, our big data collection sheet. So field data is recorded into our fish data sheet, which is right here, with additional information such as feeding guild, tolerance, breeding guild, and IBI group. The only numbers that are input are the ones in blue. Everything else on the left is calculated using just Excel functions. The modified index of well-being, which is the MIWB, just right here, is calculated using these functions and tells us whether there is a positive relationship between species, diversity, and the quality of water and habitat. The index for biotic diversity, which is the IBI, will be calculated using hand calculation sheets for weighting and headwater sites. So they are separated into headwater and weightable, and the IBI tells us about water pollution problems and is calculated using data from surveys, using metrics like species richness, composition, and fish abundance. There is a secret third option. There's boat IBI, but since we don't sample on boats, it's not applicable here. If you look underneath the metrics, the species richness metric is different for each weightable or headwater site. They have different features, so they're measured differently. The last score that we attribute to our sites is the QHEI, which again is Qualitative Habitat Evaluation Index. This is used to quantify the habitat characteristics of locations for fish communities, like substrate, in-stream cover, or a channel morphology. This is not just a general habitat analysis. This is specifically to look at fish habitat. So once we have all those scores calculated, they will be given a different score, similar to the water quality score. We like our colors. With IBI and MIWB, they start at fair and end with exceptional, and QHEI will start at very poor and will move to excellent. This slide in particular is taken from our end of year results that we send to our volunteers at the end of the season. So next we have our results. So in 2024, we caught 35 different species, with the least common being the silver shiner, the gizzard shad, the brook silverside, the black-side darter, which is the picture in the middle, and our quillback carp sucker, which is the one on the top. And our top scored site of 2024 was Dry Fork Creek. Regarding the Mill Creek, we saw 26 different species, and the least common of them being the warmouth, the yellow bullhead, the orange spotted sunfish, the channel catfish, and the white crappie. Out of 5 Mill Creek sites sampled, 3 had an IBI of marginally good, 2 of them had an IBI score of just good, and our top score site was the West Fork of the Mill Creek by Glenwood Gardens, where we sampled 23 species, had an IBI of marginally good, had an MIWB of exceptional, and a QHEI of 69, which is scored as excellent. So a little case study. This is Banklick Creek, one of the River Unlimited sites. This is located in Butler County and flows into the Great Miami River. Our sampling process went very smooth for this, nothing out of the ordinary, until I started doing the calculation for our IBI score. And I knew that the previous score for this site was sampled at 2014 by by MBI, we love our acronyms, which is the Midwest Biodiversity Institute, and they had a 38, and I kept getting 52. And I did my math over at least 3 times, and it wasn't my math. So this is when I brought it up to Sarah, and I said, something's up here, because we'll get differences in our IBI scores compared to OEPA scores and MBI scores, but the discrepancy has never been this large. So she found the original 2014 MBI report where we found something significant. MBI had only been able to sample 10 fish, and they also, in their water quality tests, classified the site as impaired due to high level of organic enrichment and low dissolved oxygen, with urban runoff being cited as the primary source. Further research led Sarah to articles about failing septic systems in the surrounding area, and this was our missing puzzle piece. When a septic system fails on water, untreated wastewater enters the stream, introducing organic matter like human waste, food particles, and biodegradable materials. Bacteria and microorganisms decompose this organic matter through aerobic respiration, a process that consumes dissolved oxygen. As more oxygen is moved, as more oxygen is used up, dissolved oxygen goes down, creating a hostile environment for aquatic life. The 2014 sampling reflected these poor conditions with low biodiversity and the IBI score, again, of 38. Fast forward to 2024, the story is remarkably different. Not only did our IBI score rise to 52, but we also sampled twice as many species, with us sampling 20. More significantly, we found species classified as sensitive species, fish that thrive in clean, well-oxygenated water. Among them were a black red horse, sand shiner, and western black-nosed dace, across the bottom here. None which were present in their 2014 sampling. Their presence strongly suggests an improvement in water quality and potential recovery of the Banklet Creek ecosystem. Freshwater. That's what. So Sarah and I we could not find concrete evidence of them fixing the septic systems. I did find some estimations of how much it would cost Butler County, and they did have a timeline set. These were files I found from 2016, so they looked into doing it. I just couldn't find any concrete evidence if they did it, either government or if the private citizens did it fix the issue. So I don't know what was fixed. I just know something was fixed. So freshwater fish species vary in their tolerance to pollution, and their presence or absence is often used as a biological indicator of water quality. Fish communities are often classified based on their sensitivity to pollutants, so we'll do the two extremes here. So sensitive species, which are the ones on the right, require high quality water with good dissolved oxygen levels and minimum contaminants with low organic enrichment. Examples of these fish are on the right, your left, my right. This is, again, a black red horse, and this is a stone-capped mad tom. On the other hand, we have tolerant species, and these are species that can withstand poor water quality, and their dominance in a body of water often signals environmental stress. This is just one way biological surveys can be used as bioindicators that something may be off or on about the water quality for that stream, as seen in our case of the Banklet Creek. Water quality testing and fish sampling should be used together because they provide a more complete understanding of stream health, either than just one method alone. Water quality testing offers a snapshot of different conditions by measuring physical and chemical parameters. This data helps identify fluctuations in pollution sources. However, water testing alone has limitations as it only captures conditions at that time of sampling. Fish sampling, on the other hand, serves as a long-term indicator of ecosystem health. Because fish are sensitive to water changes in water, habitat conditions, or pollution levels, their presence or absence reflects a cumulative environmental impacts over time. By using fish as bioindicators, we can detect chronic pollution that periodic testing may overlook, such as persistent nutrient enrichment or gradual habitat degradation. Additionally, fish sampling can track ecosystem recovery following pollution control efforts, providing insight into the effectiveness of conservation measures. When used in combination, water quality testing and fish sampling create a more accurate and holistic assessment of aquatic health. While water testing pinpoints immediate water quality issues, fish sampling provides biological validation by showing how aquatic life is responding to those conditions. Together, these methods will help us make informed decisions about conservation, pollution control, and habitat restoration. So I want to touch on one more thing before the end. about how educating on electrofishing and assessing fish communities can expand on water quality knowledge. In the fall of 2024, Sarah led 3 educational workshops on electrofishing. One was with the Ohio River Foundation and 2 for Public Works employees to help them connect the dots on what they're teaching about in the case of the Ohio River Foundation and with what their job entails on a day-to-day basis in the case of Public Works employees. The ORF educators got a hands-on lesson in electrofishing as well as IBI scoring. The reception to this workshop was really good and really positive, and the ORF educators said that it deepened their understanding of water quality and fish sampling, and that had them better equipped to teaching youths about fish studies, macroinvertebrates, and water quality testing. The Public Works workshops were also hands-on and helped employees form connections between the regulations and the best management practices that they are told about. And they just may not know why these regulations and best management practices are there in place to protect water quality. And hopefully that really helps them connect the dots. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Yeah. It is a little bit competitive. We have, we only can take about like 7 volunteers, and we have some of the same volunteers every single year, but we do post about on our website, so keep an eye open. Again, it's late summer to early fall. Yeah. It was up in Butler County. I can give you the latitude and longitude if you see me afterwards. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I just wanted to point out there's a Benedict Creek in Hamilton County.
Mm-hmm.
Drains a school landfill, and it's been suffering very high conductivity and blowouts occasionally every poli. I dare say that unless you got right down by the Great Miami River, it would not be safe to stay in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make sure you train it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Banklet creeks can't catch a break.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jen. All right. And next, I would like to introduce Laura Boyd from MSD to talk a little bit about the Lower Mill Creek Bioassessment and what MSD does to help contribute to water quality in the Mill Creek.
Oh, okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, great. Okay. Hi, as Beth said, my name is Laura Boyd, and I'm the environmental manager for MSD. And I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk to you about water quality. And next slide. Next slide. So I'm going to focus on, my presentation is going to cover the results of the 2023 bioassessment that was performed by the Midwest Biodiversity Institute. However, I think it's also important for us to understand why that bioassessment was done. So MSD supports these bioassessments as part of our in-stream monitoring program, and typically they're done once every 5 years. So we did one in 2021, and then we did another one in 2023 as a follow-up to a electrical power failure that occurred at the Mill Creek in 2023. So I want to kind of travel back in time to March of 2023 and gain a better picture of what happened here at the facility and how that contributed to water quality. And then we can talk about what the results of that study say. And so at this time, I would like to turn it over to one of our plant supervisors here at Mill Creek, because I think he would give you a better firsthand account of that event that took place in March of 2023. So, Andrew.
Thanks, Laura. Can everyone hear me? Hi, I've been given 3 minutes, so I'll be very brief. I work at the Mill Creek Treatment Plant. I remember as a child playing soccer at Koenig Park in Reading, 1990. As a child, youth soccer. I remember looking at Mill Creek and looking at it was green and gray and didn't smell very good. It's not the Mill Creek we have today, so I'm very excited about all the progress that's happened over the past 30 years. But so Mill Creek Treatment Plant, this is where I work every night. Not every night, I'm off tonight. I just woke up a few hours ago, so please forgive me. We had a power failure that interrupted the Mill Creek Treatment Plant for 3 full days, and then we had partial power for a few days after that before we had utility power restored, which took treatment completely offline, which had a major impact on Mill Creek water quality for a few days. Next slide. So this is a timeline of what was going on. So March 5th, 2023, 7:27 in the morning, there was a power failure at Mill Creek. We were midway through a electrical upgrade at our main substation. One transformer was replaced. They started dismantling the other one. The new transformer failed, and we had nothing to switch over to. So it was quite literally the worst possible scenario that could have come from that project. If you do want to read about it, there was an article I wrote in Buckeye Bulletin. Oh, go back, I'm sorry, one slide. I got ahead of myself. So power went off March 5th. They shipped in multiple megawatts of generators from several states, and we had treatment back online March 8th, partial treatment, primary treatment only, and we had secondary treatment on by Friday of that week. But there was a complete discharge of the collection system into Mill Creek, the lower 4 miles specifically, over those few days. Yeah, next slide, thank you. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of what happened for that week and 2 to 3 weeks after that, there's an article in Buckeye Bulletin. There's copies on the security desk if you want to pick one up on your way out. It's something I wrote, and it details everything that happened in the plant if you want to really get into it. So everything was back online at the end of that week, and then Laura can talk more about how Mill Creek fared after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. He did a much better job than I would have done. So now that we all have a clear picture of kind of what happened in March of 2023, we're going to fast forward to June. That's when the sampling began. Well, I guess to take a step back. So we started observing overflows from this event on our auxiliary interceptor about 30 minutes after we lost power. So within 30 minutes, we started seeing overflows, and then within 90 minutes, we started seeing additional overflows on our main Mill Creek interceptor. And so we were all in a frenzy, making notifications in that first few hours. Next slide. This picture, I think, shows a very striking contrast between, this is the west fork of the Mill Creek and the main stem on the right. So you can see the contrast between the different water. And this image was taken just a couple days later on March 7th, and you can see that the water level is still pretty high in the West Fork channel. And then that arrow is pointing to some manholes that you can't see right now, but those were contributing to some of the overflows that we experienced. Next slide. And then this image was taken just a couple days later on March 9th. So at that time, as you heard from Andrew, the plant was partially or almost back online. And you can see that the water level has decreased, and starts to see some solids and stuff left over in the West Fork. Next slide. And then this picture, again, was taken just a couple days later on March 11th. And MSD, our collection crew, was very helpful in getting out there and responding and trying to clean up the solids that had settled from the water. So next slide. So this is a timeline that we put together that kind of shows on the left-hand side, it lists the CSOs and their time to discharge during the event. So the first CSO that we saw in overflow was at CSO 152, which is actually just located here at the treatment plant. So that was the first one to overflow, and then as you work your way up, the last one that was affected by the event was CSO 433. And so I think 433 took about 7.5 hours to be impacted, and then CSO 152 was about that 30 minutes. Yes, Bennett. That's a great question. I don't know. I'll phone a friend. I got some MSD folks here in the room, but I don't know. I'll get back to you, Bennett. And then the right hand side depicts the duration of each of those overflows. So thanks to our Smart Sewers program, we can get down to this level of data. But CSO 419, I think, was the one that discharged the longest at the 127 hours. So next slide. And then for the total overflow volume, and we only calculate volumes for our CSO. So this doesn't include the manhole that I showed on the West Fork branch, but our total overflow volume from the CSOs was approximately 439 million gallons. Next slide. Okay, so now that we have that picture in our mind, I think we're all kind of like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. But it turns out it wasn't as impactful to the Mill Creek as maybe one would suspect. So now I'm going to talk about the results of the 2023 bioassessment that was performed by MBI. Next slide. So as I mentioned, MSD supports this effort traditionally under our in-stream monitoring program, but this sampling effort and water quality monitoring was at a special request of Mill Creek Alliance. And so, like I mentioned, in 2021, we sampled about 44 sites on the Mill Creek. This time around, we only did the lower Mill Creek, so that it's kind of a mini bioassessment, and it focused on the lower Mill Creek, which was impacted by the power outage. Next slide. Next, please. Okay, so the scope of the study, again, was focused on the lower Mill Creek, and again, it was to understand the impact of the power outage. And the sampling occurred between June and October of 2023. The report was then published a year later in 2024, which is kind of why we're just now presenting on it. But we included 9 sampling locations, and 2 of those sampling locations were actually upstream of impacts observed during the power outage. And it included everything that Jen just spoke on. So she said gave a really good introduction on the metrics that are typically included in the bioassessment, which are the fish, the macroinvertebrates, habitat, and then water and simple sediment chemistry data. So yeah, the image on the right is kind of just depicting all of the different sampling locations and the CSOs. So Bennett, now that you're, I don't know, 4033 is down here. It is an Ohio River. So, okay, next slide. So the data. I tried to summarize this in the best and easiest way. I don't know if that's legible, actually. It looks a little blurry, but the chart on the top chart on the left is the 2023 results, and then the chart or the table on the right-hand side is the 2021 bioassessment data. So, and then the chart below, I think, is really what summarizes the data between those 2 different studies. And interestingly, the upstream sites, so MC74 and MC75, their aquatic life use status actually declined from what we observed or what MBI observed in 2021. The most contributing factor to that, again, is urban stormwater runoff. And then I think most surprisingly, there were no substantial changes in aquatic life use status in the other 7 sampling locations. And then there was even one site, so MC03, which is just downstream of Lick Run, actually showed an improvement from the 2021 bioassessment. Let's see. So the two upstream sites that were in partial attainment of the modified warm water habitat was due to a low MIWB at MC75 and then a low ICI at MC74. And again, both of these sites were in full attainment in 2021, so that's what contributed to their decline. Next slide. So the next few slides are going to depict some longitudinal trend charts of the data in each index. So this chart is for the fish index of biotic integrity, or the IBI, which is what Jen just spoke about. And from this chart, you can see that the results are for 2023 are very similar to what we've seen in the prior year studies, excluding 1992. So not a lot of change. Next slide. For the ICI, or the bugs, again, we're seeing a similar trend than what we saw in 2021. There's some decline there, but again, those occurred at the upstream sites, and overall, it's better than what we saw in 2016 and 2011. Next slide. So for the modified index of well-being is another fish index. Again, not a lot of change in what we saw in the years prior, and performing better than in some cases of what we saw in 2016. Next slide. And then for habitat, I think you've seen some improvements in 2023, and then the trend is generally the same and not a lot of change. And then the area of degradation and area of attainment, these charts kind of help identify the change over time. And so the bottom is the area of degradation and stream miles, and the top is the area of attainment. So overall, the trends, I think, are relatively the same. For the aquatic life use status, you will see that in 2021 we made some improvements, and then dropped. You'll see a larger bar on the bottom for area of non-attainment, and again, those were due to those two upstream sites that went from partial to or from full attainment to partial attainment in 2023. And next slide. So in conclusion, there was no substantial change in the overall trajectory of water quality for the Mill Creek. And again, we're seeing very similar results to what we saw in both 2016 and 2021. And so, I think it just goes to speak to the resiliency of the Mill Creek and all of the work that we're all doing, and the success of the Mill Creek Alliance and other organizations that are working diligently on improving water quality. So I was talking with some colleagues of mine, and we were wondering if the Mill Creek wasn't in such great condition today, would these results be the same? Would the power outage have had a different impact? It's hard to say, but I think it's great to know that the stream is in such great health that it can recover so quickly from an incident like this. So I appreciate all the work that Mill Creek Alliance is doing, and I thank you for coming tonight. And on behalf of MSD, I appreciate all your hard work. So thank you. Yeah, I don't know how much time I have left, so 5 minutes. Okay, I'll take some questions from the audience. I did have another portion of my presentation, but for the sake of time, I think we'll just maybe jump to questions, and then I can talk with the folks afterwards about other things. So yes, I saw a couple hands. Larry.
Thanks for your report, Laura. One of the things that happened in the immediate aftermath of power failure was the Army Corps of Engineers increased dam releases in order to put more clean water into the lake, more flushing of the streams. Do you have an assessment or a gut sense of how much difference that made if you had left contaminated water sitting in the creek longer with the trouble in the earth?
Yeah, I would say they probably would, right? I think, and thanks for bringing that up because I forgot to mention that, but that collaboration and coordination both on MSD and Mill Creek Alliance, I think was Yeah, definitely made a huge difference. Yeah, Scott. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yeah, the answer is no. I mean, it was a very unique situation, I think, that occurred because they were undergoing a major capital improvement project at the substation, and it just was very bad luck that we lost that feed. But the plant has dual feeds, and so the likelihood of them losing both of them is very, very, very low. So no, I don't think that this, knock on wood, doesn't happen again. And Andrew, yes. Yeah, and we did issue a statement. I think there was a statement issued, but the failure occurred due to a manufacturing defect. So it was out of MSD's control. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any more questions? I didn't mean to make this about the power outage, but I think it is important to understand it. So, yeah. All right. Yes, Dr. Miller.
Indeed, great partnership. Thank you so much, Laura. So, again, as Laura said, this was an issue and an incident that happened in 2023, but the data collected to follow up on the impacts to the quality of the Mill Creek were just published in July of 2024. So, as we assess 2024 water quality data, we included that report. We're able to combine the data that we collect reporting from multiple local agencies. In what we really want to focus on as a key takeaway is that while we still have more work to do with removing sources of impairment, we make this work happen through collaborative efforts. We make this work happen through community support, and we have to collectively encourage accountability in prioritizing our natural resources locally. So water quality and habitat health in the Mill Creek is improving year over year. We continue to see it with our data, and we couldn't do it without everyone in the room supporting what we do. So thank you. Does anyone have any further questions for the evening? Ken, I saw your hand up earlier. Any questions on Zoom? Okay, well, I would like to thank not only all of you for coming and hanging out with us tonight, but thanks to Kylie, our MC, and our lab leader for the 2025 season. And thank you to Linda, Rufaro, Pip, all of our team members who have helped make this happen this evening. Bennett, Dave, I couldn't do one presentation alone, so thank you, Mill Creek Alliance. Thank you all of our guest presenters.